Behind the Shades.
My name is William Kemm, as you mentioned, and basically like now I'm working in holistic health with a world-class holistic health and life coach. I'm actually training with him, and he's got a company. It's called Elite Dynamic Life, and so basically, like I met this guy 5 years ago and just been working with him and training with him and his son. It's actually a father and son company, sorry. And like I said, you can find us at Elite Dynamic Life, or if you want to reach out to me personally, just find me on Facebook. That's usually the best place to find me. Just William Kemm is my handle on there. And yeah, that's it for my links, I guess. That's pretty much all I share. And on my Facebook, though, you can find my phone number and stuff. But yeah, I prefer people talk to me on Messenger first, and then we can set up a call.
Perfect, perfect. So in 2022, I had a family member that was going through a medical situation. And it was a
Mhm.
little bit of a struggle because no one in my family has anything of this type. And she ultimately ended up with cancer. And I know you were also impacted by that. So take us through the beginning. When did you find out about your diagnosis and what triggered you to say maybe something isn't right and ultimately find out?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, it started when I was 10 years old, is when I was first diagnosed with cancer, is T-cell leukemia. And I just got really tired in school one day. And so I just called my parents. They came and picked me up, and it just progressively got worse to the point where I was just in so much pain I couldn't sleep. And so they took me to the hospital, and like I lived in a small rural town, so they took me to the closest hospital, and they told my parents I had Hodgkin's. And so but for whatever reason my parents they didn't take that diagnosis. So they actually took me to another hospital in Edmonton, and that's where they basically diagnosed me right away with T-cell leukemia. And by the time I got down there, this was probably about I'd say 10 days after I originally got sick. And in those 10 days, like I said, I was in so much pain. My lymph nodes were all swollen up, and my stomach was just in excruciating pain. Like I said, I couldn't even sleep, and just a lot of swelling going on in my lymph nodes and stuff. And on the way to the hospital, actually, I got like a massive nosebleed, and this went on for like an hour and a half. It's pretty crazy. Like I was 10 years old at the time, and I just didn't really understand what was going on. And shortly after I got to the Edmonton hospital, about an hour after, the doctors came into my parents what was going on. And so like they didn't know any different, right? So like I might mention, like now knowing what I know now, I would never go that route, me personally, right? I wouldn't suggest anyone go the Western medical route. I mean, that's gonna raise a lot of eyebrows, a lot, right? Like a lot of people won't agree with that, but that's that's just my opinion. That's been my experience, right? So I went through chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and then just a lot of different like treatments, right? Like spinal taps and things like that, which they did at that time. I'm not too sure if it's the same now. I'm not really too, up to date on the exact things. I know chemotherapy is still a thing, and radiation therapy, but that's what I had, right? And I had a few long stints in the hospital, and death was never a thought of mine. Like even though I seen like a lot of kids who I became friends with and stuff in there, they didn't make it, right? And I knew it, they had passed on, and but they're still with cancer, right? So it's but for whatever reason, like I was just, a tough kid at the time, and like I said, death was never a thought of mine. So I just kind of pushed through it, and I had my mom with me the whole time, right? She never left my side. She was my rock, like we were best friends. Like she was my best friend, like that's a real mama's boy and stuff. And so yeah, it's like like I said, she never left my side. She was huge in my healing, I think, too, from getting through all that, right?
When you look back, because 10 years old is a very young age to be confronted with something that is so large in nature,
Yeah, life
um,
changing.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's many people, and you may know them, and you saw them when probably you were there, where they hear cancer, they automatically think it's like a death sentence. They think the
Yeah,
worst, right?
yeah.
Do you remember how you felt being that young, going through something that is so ominous in nature?
It's weird, man. Like, yes, like I said, in all honesty, like it's just something I was like, I'm going through it. Like, it wasn't even a cognitive thought of, like, I like had a lot going on as a kid, though, right? Like, my parents were fighting all the time, and like there was violence and stuff, and um, but like I said, I was emotionally, it didn't bother me really, and like I said, it was just I took it on as something that I was just it was something that was brought upon me, and I was gonna get through it and go through it. You know, it's kind of weird, right? Like I never, um, yeah, like I was happy the whole time, like. It's weird, like in the hospital, I'd be just like joking and playing with the nurses and stuff. And it was weird. It was kind of like a good time for me, honestly, man. Like, even though I got super weak and lost my hair and stuff, and like, that was a struggle. Like physically, it was like, I could tell it was taking a toll on me, right? Like, but I still remained a happy, cheerful guy. It was weird, right? Like I said, the nurses loved me and stuff, and I just made the best of it, right? Yeah.
Looking back, how much do you think your life has been impacted by that situation?
That's the thing I'd say. Like it was life changing for me, right? The bone marrow transplant, I had to have like 10 rounds of full body radiation. And basically what that does, it burns you from the inside out, right? So I just remember tons and tons of pain, but like I was on like a ton of morphine, right? I remember the nurses telling me like that amount of morphine would drop any regular human being, like it would kill them, right? And I could hit this thing every 7 minutes. So like that's part of my story too. Like I basically became addicted to opiates then as a child, which I didn't understand. Then I didn't think I was physically addicted, and like that was never like I didn't even know that was a thing, right? But I remember the doctors trying to take it away from me when I was in the hospital when I was going through my bone marrow transplant. I just remember getting really upset and crying about it, right? Like I didn't want them to take it away, right? So looking back on it now, like I can understand why, because I actually honestly enjoyed it, obviously, right? Like it was like the best feeling in the world was to get injected with the morphine, right? Like I said, because I had it in my intravenous, and I just remember it being like a really good feeling. Yeah.
How long did you battle that addiction to opioids and morphine?
That's the thing. Like it wasn't addiction at the time. It was like basically they took it away from me, and then it was gone, right? But like the treatments and stuff, the radiation, it damaged my lungs. It like you can tell my voice is different. It damaged like reproductive organs and stuff like that, right? Like it's yeah, man, it was crazy. It like gave me like a super, super weak immune system. And I had chronic fatigue syndrome for a long, long time. My memory was basically non-existent for a long, long time. A lot of things, man. Cramps. I had cramps all over my body. Like it was brutal, man. Like some of the things I went through and through most of my life, honestly. Just not knowing how to repair myself from that, right? As with I know a lot of the people that went through what I went through, they're going through that too, right? So, but yeah, man, it's chemotherapy and radiation therapy. It's one of the most toxic things you can do to your body, as you can imagine, I'm sure. Stunted my growth. Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at the family member who was going through that, we caught the cancer early, and it was they said it was like before
Mm.
stage one, right? So it was really,
Mm.
really early.
Yeah.
And when they went through the radiation and everything, they felt like they're being cooked, as you mentioned, from the inside out, right? They're overheated and they felt exhausted
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's tough. And there's many times where I look back to what they're going through, and it's like there has to be a better way to deal with this, because this seems, to your point, so detrimental to their body. But one thing that I found, and I'll ask you this question as well, Bill, is mentally they were being impacted quite a bit, maybe
Mm.
on this prop on the same level, if not more, because they felt like their life was forever changed. They felt like,
Mm.
I don't want to fight anymore. This is so exhausting. It was just tiring to do everything in their
Mm.
life. Like, I know you went through it as a child, but if
Mm.
you were to go through it, let's say later on in life, do you believe that you would have maybe similar thoughts where this is tiring, this is exhausting, I don't know if I can keep
Yeah.
fighting?
I could definitely, yeah, relate to that, man. Because like I said, like at the time when I was young and 10 years old, it didn't weigh on me like that, right? Which is probably good. I was diagnosed when I was so young, right? Because I still had all my health, right? Or sort of what I thought. But as the years went on, And don't get me wrong too, like when I got out of the hospital and stuff, I was different, right? Like the kids could tell I was different and they treated me different, and that was tough, right? Because I wanted to be treated just like a regular person, just like a regular kid, right? But then I started to realize like, maybe I'm not gonna become, maybe I'm not gonna get my health back, maybe I'm not even not gonna be a normal, human being again, right? Like maybe I'll never get healthy again, right? And it was bad, it was tough, man. And I think shortly after that too, my mom died. Like we were coming home from one of my checkups, and she was super tired, I guess, and we got in a motor vehicle accident. She fell asleep at the wheel, and we were both ejected from the vehicle. And unfortunately, the vehicle landed on top of her, killing her instantly. And I was thrown into the ditch, and I suffered a fractured femur and a concussion and stuff. And but it was just like the loss of my mom was absolutely devastating to put that on top of what I was already going through. Right, it destroyed me honestly, and I just became a really bitter, angry person. And yeah, man, it was tough. And then going through what I was going through with the health and stuff too, it's just like I said, the best way I could describe was I just became really angry and I started acting out, and that's when basically I started dabbling in drugs and stuff like that, right? And it started like I think I was in, probably in grade 8 at the time when my mom died. A lot of it's a blur, right? I could probably blocked a lot of it out. And like I said, I went through so much in such a short amount of time. I don't remember the exact dates and stuff, but basically, like I started stealing my dad's booze and his cigarettes and stuff, and taking that to school and skipping school, and it just got progressively worse, right? Tried a geographical change. My dad did anyways, and we moved to the island, and basically things just continued as they were. Like after my mom passed away, right? I guess I was just really struggling to fit in. Like kids were cruel, right? As you can imagine, and like they could tell I was different, and so it was a new group of kids, and they were picking on me and stuff, and so I was just like, I just decided I'm not going to go to school, and just told my dad like I'm not going to go to school, and I'm going to try homeschooling, and that didn't work out too well. Like I just didn't do it, right? So basically, my dad sent me to an alternative school, and it was basically the same deal. I was just super insecure, like had a lot of anxiety and depression, and just a lot of stuff going on, right? As you can imagine, I was underweight, and yeah, it was tough, man. And so I just, I found a crowd that like would accept me, right? Which was, unfortunately, the crowd was, doing drugs and drinking all the time, right? So yeah, that's kind of where things kind of went for me for quite some time.
In my early teens, I was bullied myself, and it was tough to go through because you feel so out of place, and
Mm.
you look for guidance, and you look for people that will make you feel belong, because bullying can make you feel so isolated, especially if it's like on a social level.
Mm.
And those who did it were older than me, and it always reminded me of that. Not that it was race related, but it always reminded me of the movie Django Unchained, if you've ever watched
Oh
it,
yeah, yeah.
right? So as I got older and I got physically bigger and I got physically stronger, I went back for all of my aggressors.
Nice. Right on.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So one by one, and some people that might be like a hero story, some people might be like a villain story, but I guess that was like the birth of my villain arc, right?
Mm.
And but one thing I remember during that time, though, that even though I was able to get a sense of revenge or vengeance, or I was able to
Mm.
get back at them, right? There are times where I thought to myself, will my suffering ever end? And is that something that you asked yourself as you went through the cancer, your mom was killed in a car accident, you started to be bullying, you're moving from this place to this place, you have the drugs. Did you ever ask yourself, hey Bill, will your suffering ever stop?
Yeah, no, like it's funny, man. I don't know if I ever did, but like I just knew I was suffering and struggling, right? Like inside I could, tell, but it's weird. Like I was just always a strong character, I guess, and I was just kept pushing forward and trying to find an answer, even though I was like obviously like just spiraling out of control, right? Um, I moved, like my dad were fighting all the time because of what was going on. And I was just being really disrespectful and stuff, and I just had no respect for my dad, honestly. And so I ended up moving in with my uncle, and basically that's when things kind of like I was kind of like out on my own at that point. Like my uncle, even though he cared for me and stuff, he was doing his own thing, right? And he just kind of like took me into to try and separate me from what I was doing, which if anyone who's ever went through addictions knows, the problem isn't where we are or who we're surrounding ourselves. It's with us. We're the problem, right? It's always we're the problem, right? Our thinking is the problem. And my health was a problem too as well, right? So I dwelled on that a lot, right? And it was just a need to fit in, right? Like we're supposed to be surrounded by, like, we're tribes people, right? We're supposed to always have a tribe. That's the way we're designed, right? And when you don't feel like you have that, it's a really lonely, dark place, right? And so I would use drugs and alcohol to kind of cope, right? And to just drown out my feelings and to make myself feel more comfortable in my own skin, right? Because I found when I was drinking and stuff, it made me a lot more social. So I became a binge drinker quite quickly because I just felt it was it made me better, right? It's crazy as that is, right? And even though my health was struggling, like, like anyone that was around me was like, what are you doing? Like, you of all people can't afford to be doing this, right? And so yeah, it was pretty insane, man. And like I said, it was just that was my life for so long. And then I just got into the criminal element too as well, right? Like I kind of like I said, I was still searching though. I was still searching for answers because deep down inside, I knew like I could get healthier for whatever reason. It was call it God or whatever. There was something inside me told me that I could get my health back, right? And I spent years and years searching and trying different modalities and energy healing and diets and stuff. But like I never had the absolute answers, right? Because there's a lot of different ideas out there, but unless you know the absolute truth, it's hard to put it all together, especially for my situation, all I had been through, right? So yeah, man, it was a struggle. It took me to a lot of dark places, my drug addiction and stuff, and my drug dealing and stuff like that, right? Like it went on for 17 years and it was just crazy, man. It took me to like, in and out of jail, treatment centers, detox facilities and homelessness even, and it was bad, man. Yeah.
Did you ever think that you would be able to escape the hold that the drugs and the criminality had on you?
Um, it's funny, like once I got to a certain stage, I was like just totally consumed by hard drugs. Like I was a full blown like heroin and crack cocaine and crystal meth user on the daily, right? And it was like I was like I said, consumed. That was my life. Like I would stay up for like sometimes 10 days at a time, right? I wouldn't be eating, I wouldn't be drinking. It's just a miracle I even survived. Absolutely consumed. And there was no thought of anything other than getting my next fix. That's to the point where I was at, man. As bad as that sounds, that's where I was at. Like that, it wasn't that bad though all the time, like I said, because for a long time there I was just like a daily weed smoker. I had managed to put everything else aside, and I was just, really addicted to making money for quite some time, and that kind of brought my health back anyways, where I was able to spend a lot of money on doing the right things, right? Even though I was still smoking weed. I spent a lot of money on nutrition and stuff. Even though I didn't know exactly what I was doing, it helped.
Some of the
But
people that I know that were battling addiction, whether it be gambling or be drugs, or it can be women or it could be men, right?
yeah,
um, they found that they lost themselves within the addiction, whereas they can look in the mirror and they're like, who am I? And then the
absolutely.
people, right? And the people around them are wondering, who are you? Did you have moments where even the people who you were trying to create your tribe with, eventually they began to wonder, okay, Bill, is everything all right? This is not who you're supposed to be. What's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, exactly. Everyone around me was saying what's going on. Yeah. And it's surprised. I was actually shocked how long it took to get to that point where people are just like, and even my dad, it was, it just took him a long time to figure out what was going on, I guess. Or they knew, or they knew they just probably just didn't want to confront me, right? And then eventually they did, and they just come to me begging me to stop, right? And I just obviously I couldn't stop. It was like I said, I was consumed by it. I just got to a point where I was, for whatever reason, I was just the struggle got so hard. That's when I was like, okay, I can't go on like this anymore. And how all the people around me are just like kind of like distancing themselves from me. Even my dad, right, where he was just, because I was hurting him so badly, mentally, emotionally, and just using and abusing him basically. Once I seen all that, I guess I had a moment of reprieve in jail, and I kind of got a moment of clarity there where I wanted to just actually start changing for myself and for those that are around me.
When was the moment where you realized, as you just mentioned, I want to change for those around me as well as myself, more importantly?
It's funny, man, because there's a few of I say it's funny, it's not funny, but there was a few of those moments where I really wanted to stop, right? And like I would check myself into treatment, right? And even even in treatment, I was just fiending to do drugs so bad. The want to do drugs, the insanity of yeah, wanting that fix or whatever, that sense of ease and comfort they call it, right? Would just haunt me in there. And I never even stayed sober in treatment, right? So I just, I'd end up finishing my stay in there and just be right back at it again. And it was just insane. So then I would just like basically, grind myself down to the point where I couldn't even function anymore. And so I'd check myself into treatment, or I'd get arrested and go back to jail. And this went on for years, until I got to the point where I was just, another time in treatment. Just got off of homelessness on Hastings Street. It was a brutal place in Vancouver. I was, fighting every day just to survive, right? And that was just like the lowest of the low. And I get into treatment and I'm doing dope in treatment again, right? It was just I couldn't understand it. And just yeah, I was just super struggling with everything, mentally, emotionally, my anxiety, my depression, and just that couldn't get the thought of doing drugs out of my head. And like physically too, I was still struggling, right? I was super underweight, and like I said, I was having cramps and my memory was basically non-existent. I'd sometimes say I couldn't make it through the day without having a nap, right? Right? I was like, that's not a life to live, right? That's just crazy, right? And so I got the thought of, the last time actually in treatment I got like 10 months sober, and I was doing everything I needed to do to stay sober, right? I was volunteering at the treatment center. I was, working at the second stage house where I was at, like where I was staying at. I was managing that place, and then I was doing really good, man. Like I was, I felt like I could stay sober at that point. I wasn't, the insanity to want to do dope every day kind of seemed like it was subsided. And again, it came back when I took on too much and I took on another job, and I was kind of getting run down, and I can't explain why it happened, but I just started getting that desire to want to do drugs again, because just to feel that sense of ease and comfort, my head was telling me that was the solution to my problems, as it always did, right? And I just like once I started getting that feeling again and fighting it, I just started getting scared and scared, and because I remembered what happened last time when I was homeless on Hastings, right? It was just a war zone down there. And then my next thought was to kill myself, because like my mind was telling me, if you can't do it this time, you've tried all these other times, and this time you actually tried 100%, all out, doing the 12 steps and all this stuff, volunteering and all this, right? And if you can't do it this time, you obviously can't do it, right? So you should just kill yourself. And that like was just terrifying, right? It dropped me to my knees. Like I never had that thought before, even though all the things I went through, the thought of suicide was never a thought of mine, right? And once that thought came into my head, like I said, it terrified me. And I literally dropped my knees and I just cried out to God. I was like, God, if you're real, like, please just help me. I was literally crying, bawling in tears for God to help me, right? And that was like a pivotal changing point in my life. And basically the guy I met shortly after that was the guy, like, and it's like there's no coincidences as far as I'm concerned, right? Like and I basically ended up meeting this guy the next day, right? I met him through a guy who I work with. And basically it's a funny story. I ended up going to work on a Saturday, which I never did. It was actually the next day. And I said, is that at the end of my day, and this guy who I just like talked to on passing, like saying hi and stuff, and we chat here and there, right? But he came to me at the end of work one day at this Saturday, and he's asking me for a ride home. And basically I was like, yeah, man, I'll give you a ride home. And I end up giving him a ride home, and as I'm giving him a ride home, he basically tells me this story how this holistic health and life coach saved his life from glycose fake poisoning. And he told me his whole story. I don't want to get into it, but he had a crazy story too as well. And so he told me this story, and I was like, does this guy have any success with drug addicts? And yeah, he told me this. He rattled off like 95% success rate or whatever he said, which I didn't believe it at the time, right? Because, myself, and I'd seen so many different other people just going in and out all the time, right? Like just fighting to stay sober for even a day, right? So I didn't really believe it, right? But I just thought, I kind of something inside me told me that, I should probably get a hold of this guy. Like I said, just that gut feeling, right? And I just said to him, like, how do I talk to this guy? Can I talk to this guy? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'll call him right now and see if I can get a hold of him. He's super busy, but he might pick up, right? And so he phoned him, and he actually picked up, and he passed me the phone, and I talked to this guy. I pulled over and talked to this guy probably for like 45 minutes to an hour, right? And the stuff he said just blew my mind. Like, because I said, like, I looked into a lot of stuff before, right? And I've been searching for a long time for the answers, and everything this guy said was just really resonated with me, and was stuff like I never really heard before, and a lot of it I had, right? But so I just continued to phone this guy like on the regular, and he would phone me too, and we just became good friends. I hired him as my health and life coach, and basically the rest is history, man. Like this guy, he drastically changed my life in days. Every time I talked to him, right, it was crazy, man. Like every time I talked to him, I just get a lot of peace and hope, right? And it was just yeah, man. It was just as far as I'm concerned, he was an answered prayer, right? And he drastically changed my life forever, man. And it was just, yeah, I'm just so blessed and grateful for everything that's been done for me now, and just to be able to help other people, man. It's been amazing. I never would
How
have.
important, sorry, how important was that conversation with him at that point in your life to you?
It was, yeah, it was everything I needed to hear, man. It was just, it gave me hope when I didn't have hope for such a long time. It was weird, man. Yeah. I felt like this was it, and for whatever reason. Like for me, it was God, right? God was my, yeah, man. I believe in God today. I didn't before, right? And if there was a God, I was angry at him, right? Like I was an angry dude for a long time, right? And now I'm not that guy. So yeah, man, it was drastically life changing.
Some of the people that I speak to regarding addiction and some of the trauma that they've gone through, one of the concerns that they always have is going back to that person who they
Mhm.
were while they're going through it. Do you still have that type of struggle now?
Never, no, never. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Perfect. How do you make sure that you don't go back to that person?
Okay. Basically, myself, like I just, I help people, and then I stay on the right path, right? Which I read the Bible daily now. I wake up. First thing I do in the morning is I wake up and I pound 2 liters of water and I read the Bible. For like I spend a good hour, 2 hours with God every day, right? That's just what I do, and it keeps me grounded. It keeps me in peace, and it just like, man, it's if I could tell you so many stories where like my life is like I was addicted to smoking, masturbating, like everything, man. You can imagine. If there was a drug I could find, I would do it, right? And like I said, it was a daily thought of mine was how do I get high? Where am I going to get my next fix? And I was a criminal, and I would do whatever it took to get my fix, right? And now today, the thought of doing drugs, like I couldn't. It's never even been a desire or even an itch or anything, man. Like if I would ever thought of doing drugs, I thought, "Ooh, that'd be nice" or whatever. I would just get an oversensing bomb of anxiety. Like I think back now and just think of like some of the hairy situations I was in and some of the harm I caused other people, and it just gives me a sick feeling in my stomach, and it's just like I could never imagine doing that again, man. It's awesome. Yeah.
Now that you're helping people, what are some of the ways that you're taking your experiences to help others today?
Yeah, well, it's like by talking to you today, that's like one thing I do. Like I've been doing podcasts. I'd like to do a lot more, right? But I just kind of put myself out there on Facebook and stuff and TikTok, and just I reach out to people daily who are struggling and just kind of encourage them and stuff, and share my testimony. I found that's like the most powerful thing, is basically just sharing my story and how I've changed so you can too type thing. Because I mean, stories, people want to hear stories of what how you've overcome something, right? Like I could tell someone like, how to race a car, but I've never been a race car driver. Why would they listen to me, right? So that's just what I do, right?
Yeah. If you had an opportunity to give advice to, let's say, young adults who
Mhm.
are going down a similar path to you, right? Who are angry because of life's events, right? And there's a lot of trauma in their life. What's some tips or what's some advice you'd want to give them to make sure that they don't fall down the path of criminality, but they continue to bounce back and lead a very successful life like you have?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the one thing I'd say is like, no matter how far down you think you've gone, like that's another lie that, our mind's going to tell us is we've gone too far, we've hurt too many people. That's all a lie, right? Because the moment you change, then people will see that you're not that person anymore because that's the person who you were, right? We're not that person, like I wasn't that person. I was just a damaged, hurt person, and damaged, hurt people, right? So you can't do it alone. That's another thing. It was really hard for me to ask for help. I don't know why, but I just, I fought tooth and nail to try and do it on my own. And now today I know I can never do it on my own. No one can do it on their own. And we're designed to ask for help, and people like to help people. So the best thing you can do for yourself and someone else is to ask for their help because it helps them as well as it helps you, right? So that's what I
And I
would
think
say.
that goes back to building your tribe, because if you have your tribe around you, you can ask for help, because when you can't lean on yourself, you can lean on others around you because they're your number one fan, they're your number one cheerleader, they're there to build you up. And there's always this quote I like where help one, reach one, help one.
Mhm.
Whereas you're doing amazing work by sharing your experience and helping others, and someone who's listening, someone who comes in contact with you is going to come and take that, be helped, and then pass it on. And you're creating a tribe indirectly, because you may not know some of the people that you're impacting positively, but there they are continuing the message and taking your positive energy, your courage, and moving forward. As we close, what's something that you'd like to leave with our audience today in regards to your experience and how they can continue to be better themselves?
It's a daily thing, man. You have to like actually focus on doing is to make yourself a better person every day and just do whatever it takes. Like they said, don't hold on to the past and don't worry about the future because all we have is the present, man, and it's a gift, right? That's something I learned. Is as long as you're just living in the present, amazing things will happen. And there's like, it's just keep your mind on positive things and just how you can be a better person every day, whatever that is, right? And through diet and nutrition, right? That's been one of my biggest things and that's what brought my health back because that was a massive struggle of mine was not just all the mental emotional stuff because the mental emotional stuff is literally tied to your physical. You can't thrive in your mental emotional unless you're thriving in your physical. And the same with your spiritual, right? That's another thing I learned. Like I don't want to preach to anyone, but that was instrumental in me getting my life back was getting physically well again when it was robbed from me in the first place, right? That was huge. And that's been my biggest tool and able to continue what I'm doing and to help more and more people because I'm still getting healthier and healthier every day, right? Because the toxins I took in and the toxins we're taking in daily, like, because I don't know if people understand this, but the toxicity level of the world is today is like basically what you call critical mass, right? We got to be doing some things above and beyond of just, eating well now, right? We gotta have everything dialed in order to live as long and as healthy as we're designed to live. That's just a fact.